Welcome to Stations of the Cross. This audio guide is intended to help guide your prayer and meditation experience. Stations of the Cross is a devotional practice that commemorates Jesus' passion. It's intended to help you follow in the steps of Jesus on the day of his crucifixion. The Stations of the Cross emerged from the practices of early Christian pilgrims. Pilgrims traveled to Jerusalem to walk Jesus' path to Calvary, traditionally held to be the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Because many people were not able to travel to Jerusalem, Christians began building Stations of the Cross in their own communities, allowing them to follow in Jesus' footsteps without traveling to Jerusalem. The Stations of the Cross we're using today come to us from a papal visit to Poland by Pope John Paul II in 1991. These 14 stations focus on the scriptural accounts of Jesus' passion. And before you begin, a reminder that the Stations of the Cross are a devotional practice, meaning they're meant to help aid your own personal prayer. There's no right way or wrong way to pray the Stations of the Cross. I encourage you to take some time, take a deep breath, and create some space for prayer. And I invite you to go to Station 1.
First station, Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So, could you not stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Lord, grant us your strength and wisdom, that we may seek to follow your will in all things.
Second station. Jesus, betrayed by Judas, is arrested. Immediately, while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, and with him there was a crowd with swords and clubs, from the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him and lead him away under guard." So when he came, he went up to him at once and said, "Rabbi," and kissed him. Then they laid hands on him and arrested him. Lord, grant us the courage of our convictions, that our lives may faithfully reflect the good news you bring.
The third station, Jesus is condemned by the Sanhedrin. When day came, the assembly of the elders of the people, both chief priests and scribes, gathered together, and they brought him to their council. They said, "If you are the Messiah, tell us." He replied, "If I tell you, you will not believe, and if I question you, you will not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the power of God." All of them asked, "Are you then the Son of God?" He said to them, "You say that I am." Then they said, "What further testimony do we need? We have heard it ourselves from his own lips." Lord, grant us your sense of righteousness, that we may never cease to work to bring about the justice of the kingdom that you promised.
Fourth station, Jesus is denied by Peter. Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl came to him and said, "You also were with Jesus the Galilean." But he denied it before all of them, saying, "I do not know what you are talking about." When he went out to the porch, another servant girl saw him, and she said to the bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again, he denied it with an oath, "I do not know the man." After a little while, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you are also one of them, for your accent betrays you." Then he began to curse, and he swore an oath, "I do not know the man." At that moment, the cock crowed. Then Peter remembered what Jesus had said, "Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly. Lord, grant us the gift of honesty, that we may not fear to speak the truth, even when difficult.
Fifth station. Jesus is judged by Pilate. As soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders, scribes, and the whole council. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered him, "You say so." Then the chief priests accused him of many things. Pilate asked him again, "Have you no answered? See how many charges they bring against you." But Jesus made no further reply, so that Pilate was amazed. So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas for them. And after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified. Lord, grant us discernment, that we may see as you see, not as the world sees.
Sixth station. Jesus is scourged and crowned with thorns. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. And the soldiers wove a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they dressed him in purple robe. They kept coming up to him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews," and striking him on the face. Lord, grant us patience in times of suffering, that we may offer our lives as a sacrifice of praise.
Seventh station. Jesus bears the cross. When the chief priests and the police saw him, they shouted, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and crucify him. I find no case against him." They cried out, "Away with him! Away with him! Crucify him!" Pilate asked them, "Shall I crucify your king?" The chief priests answered, "We have no king but the emperor." Then he handed him over to them to be crucified. So they took Jesus, and carrying the cross by himself, he went out to what is called the place of the skull, which in Hebrew is called Golgotha. Lord, grant us strength of purpose, that we may faithfully bear our crosses each day.
Eighth station. Jesus is helped by Simon the Cyrenian to carry the cross. They compelled a passerby who was coming in from the country to carry his cross. It was Simon of Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus. Lord, grant us willing spirits, that we may be your instruments on earth.
The ninth station. Jesus meets the women of Jerusalem. A great number of the people followed him, and among them were women who were beating their breasts and wailing for him. But Jesus turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For the days are surely coming when they will say, 'Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed.' Then they will begin to say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if they do this when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry? Lord, grant us gentle spirits, that we may comfort those who mourn."
Tenth station. Jesus is crucified. When they came to the place that is called the Skull, they crucified Jesus there with the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they cast lots to divide his clothing. Lord, grant us merciful hearts that we may bring your reconciliation and forgiveness to all.
Eleventh station. Jesus promises his kingdom to the good thief. One of the criminals who were hanged there kept deriding him and saying, "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourselves and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have been condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserve for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." He replied, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." Lord, grant us perseverance that we may never stop seeking you.
Twelfth station. Jesus speaks to his mother and the disciple. Meanwhile, standing near the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing beside her, he said to his mother, "Woman, here is your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Here is your mother." And from that hour the disciple took her into his own home. Lord, grant us constancy that we may be willing to stand by those in need.
The 13th station, Jesus dies on the cross. It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon, while the sun's light failed, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." Having said this, he breathed his last. Lord, grant us trust in you, that when our time on earth is ended, our spirits may come to you without delay.
The 14th station. Jesus is placed in the tomb. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. So Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn in the rock. He then rolled a great stone to the door of the tomb and went away. Lord, grant us your compassion that we may always provide for those in need.
Gethsemane, a poem by Mary Oliver. The grass never sleeps, or the roses, nor does the lily have a secret eye that shuts until morning. Jesus said, "Wait with me," but the disciples slept. The cricket has such splendid fringe on its feet, and it sings, have you noticed, with its whole body, and heaven knows if it ever sleeps. Jesus said, "Wait with me," and maybe the stars did. Maybe the wind wound itself into a silver tree and didn't move. Maybe the lake, far away, where once he walked as on a blue pavement, lay still and waited, wide awake. Oh, the dear bodies, slumped and eye shut, that could not keep that vigil. How they must have wept, so utterly human, knowing this too must be a part of the story.
This concludes the audio guide for our Stations of the Cross prayer walk, but we invite you to stay in the Memorial Garden for prayer and meditation as long as you